Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In a world that celebrates perfection, we rarely hear about the challenges, fears, and crossroads that successful leaders grapple with across work and life. Uncomfortable Growth Uncut shines a light on their personal story and the critical human skills we all need today to turn trials into triumph. So I'm here today on the Uncomfortable Growth Uncut podcast with the amazing Philippa Noilea-Tani. So I asked her how to say her surname because I didn't want to trip over it. Who is the Chief Investment Officer at Wavemaker, part of Group M. But more importantly, she does amazing work in the broader community in lots of different ways. And she has just joined the board of Unlimited as their newest person on the board. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, Philippa.
Thank you, Rowena. It's absolutely humbling to have been asked to join you today. So thank you for your time too.
So we met a couple of years ago through the Marketing Academy at a mentoring session, and I was just blown away by just your curiosity and your openness and ability to lean into uncomfortable growth. So I'm really delighted to have you on this podcast because I feel that you have so much to share, but also so much to give other people as a role model and an inspiration, but also someone who gets what it's like to have some tough times as well.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I can promise you I haven't always sat comfortably with the concept of uncomfortable growth, but have been lucky enough to have been able to learn from people like yourselves and other mentors and coaches and learning opportunities along the way, and have gotten to a point where I am much more comfortable with my uncomfortable growth and all that comes with it, good and bad. So no, absolute pleasure.
I think that's one of the benefits of age. So all those people out there who feel that they're getting older, the big benefit is you actually can learn how to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I do see that as one of the benefits. But we'd love to hear your uncomfortable growth story, Philippa. So what would you like to share with us today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, I think if I rewind it and kind of chunk my career to date down into kind of segments and, some of the life's challenges that have kind of hit me along the way, I think it's quite clear for me how I've kind of gone from being, as I said, quite uncomfortable with my uncomfortable growth to being in a position where I'm much more comfortable with everything that comes with it. So I think, I'm a bit of a unicorn, or one of the only unicorns out there, in that I've built my career at the one workplace and very proudly have done so. And I think, my first 5 years of my career in media, I was, loving the energy of the industry. I was loving all the perks of the industry, loving that you get to be creative and innovative and continually find, new and better ways to do things. But I think, I was going from an assistant to a buyer to a planner buyer, and I was progressing quite quickly and comfortably as a practitioner and feeling very strong about that. But the idea of change or uncomfortable growth hadn't really crossed my mind. Like, it wasn't something I thought of. And it wasn't until probably my year 5 mark in my career where my boss at the time, the wonderful Alison Van Dyke, who I got to work with for a very long time, I had a chat with her because I'd noticed that every single person that came into the business at quite a senior level was celebrated in their welcome email through their diversity of experience at different organizations in different markets. And I remember sitting down with her and saying, do I need to change jobs to grow? Like, is that something that am I sitting too firmly in my comfort zone? Yeah. And she kind of went, no, as long as you're very aware of your gaps and can get really good about asking for help outside of the people you work with day in, day out, you should be fine. But it sat with me for a while. And I had the opportunity probably after that 5-year mark, not long after it, to go on what's called the WPP Walk the Talk Learning Program. And it's this incredible program where they send a bunch of mid to senior leaders from WPP. And I was lucky enough to go to Byron for a couple of days. And it's all about unlocking leadership potential and uncovering barriers to growth. And it was quite interesting what came out, because it was the first time I'd kind of pieced my personal life with my work life and realized how intertwined they were. And it was quite confronting because they actually, one of the questions they asked was, what's holding you back? What's your biggest fear in life? And you kind of think of surface level stuff. You're being asked to share amongst a group of hundreds of colleagues. You kind of get quite surface level and you don't want to go too much deeper until someone
Big
does
presentation to leadership. That's my biggest fear. When in fact, it's, much deeper, failing in, falling over off the stage or having something that's happened in your personal life, of course.
Yeah, so it was something that I hadn't really thought of before, but where I went was actually quite deeper than I expected. And I try not to get too emotional, but I lost my dad to suicide when I was 18. And he was I've had a long time to process that, and now I can look at him and photos of him and think of him and smile. But at the time, hardest thing I ever went through. And that happened the year before I joined the industry. But what I realized in that moment was my dad his passion in life was his work. He was incredibly strong. He was very senior in his role. He was very ambitious, very, very driven. And to a certain extent, his work was his priority. And I hadn't realized it when I was younger during the time, but I think reflecting on it, realized how much he lent into work at the expense of some of his relationships in life. And I don't think intentionally, it just was that way. He very much took on the role of breadwinner and, that was his role. But we would walk home from school, in the pouring rain to find dad at home in his office because he was, at his home office working knee deep and, couldn't come to pick us up and he would miss a lot of things. My mum laughs when she tells me that, he nearly missed that birth because he was my birth because he was in a meeting, and I kind of, laughed at the time. But what happened quite late in life for him, he got to the age of 50 and realized and looked back on his life and said, look, I've achieved a lot in my professional career, but my marriage has folded. My relationship with my kids aren't as strong as it should have been. I've missed so many moments. And he spiraled off the back of that thinking into a really deep, dark depression and anxiety that in the end he took his own life. And my biggest fear when I was trying to articulate it was, what they kind of got us to think about our life in different segments and tick off where we think we were out of 100 in our career, in our family life, in our relationships with friends. And what I realized in that exercise was that work was where I felt my most comfortable. Work was where I got praise for the good work that I was doing. It was where I felt like I could achieve things and tick things off my to-do list. And just before that
too, it's more,
it was
like
very
work is controllable. It's in your control, and if you do more hours or work harder and apply, you can control it. You can perform. You can get that recognition.
Correct. And it was quite it was quite a unique time in my life because I'd just gone through a divorce and had become a single mum of 3 very young children. And what I realized in that Walk the Talk program was that, work was my comfort zone, and going home to be mum to 3 young kids doing it on my own was hard, and I wasn't succeeding very well at it. And I had days where I felt completely like I was falling apart and doing an absolute rubbish job. So what I noticed was that I was, rather than fixing that, I was leaning into work because it was where I was most comfortable. And it was creating this yucky cycle. And so my biggest moment in that was realizing that maybe it wasn't that I was not uncomfortable enough in my career, because that was what the question was, is, are you leaning into change? Are you leaning into ambition and drive and passion? And the answer was yes, I was at work. Whilst I wasn't changing my organization, I was progressing really quickly. I was developing my career. My learning curve was always steep. But actually the parts of my life that I wasn't, growing in the way that I wanted to be was outside of work. And that was quite confronting for me because it completely changed my perception.
Well, especially coming off, your father's suicide and seeing how he had lent into work, but at a great cost. But then I think also what you're sharing highlights a really really critical thing, which I think happens a lot in the work industry. It's almost like if you spend more time at work, even if it's safer, it feels almost justified. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I have to get ahead. I have to provide. I'm a single mother of 3. I need to do well. I need to earn more money. And it's almost as if, you know, putting more time into work, not that it's a bad thing, particularly if you love what you're doing, but if it's because you don't want to lean into and address the things that are important but really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it was, you know what, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't see it in the moment, right? Like in the moment, I saw myself writing one more email when I got home. While the
Yes.
kids were, having their bath or getting themselves ready for dinner, I would be
Uh-huh.
sitting or writing one more email. And it didn't matter because it was one more email.
Hmm.
And then one more email became two more emails the next night. And it wasn't until my mum came home one day and she said, your little one is 4 years old and he's trying to give you a cuddle and you're pushing him away and telling him one more email. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Like he's been waiting to see you all day and you
Hmm.
can't look at him to give him a cuddle because you're writing one more email. And she said, it's only 2 minutes, but he'll remember that 2 minutes and the 2 minutes the next night and the next night. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to stop. Like this is just, whilst it only feels like one little bit
In the
independent.
moment.
And I
Mm.
was, like I was super ambitious. I still am super ambitious. I just look at it through a really different lens.
Mm.
And I've still, my growth in my career has not slowed, but I've come at it with some non-negotiables, in terms of like time with my kids, time with
Yeah.
the family, what's important to me. And it wasn't until probably the Marketing Academy that I paused and reflected again. So I had these two incredible moments where I've been able to stop, think big picture about what success looks like to me. And I mean, you were part of my Marketing Academy journey. I was lucky enough to have you as one of my mentors, and I think you formally introduced me to the concept of uncomfortable growth. And I remember our conversation, and I was, again, coming into Marketing Academy, again, I was at close to my 15-year anniversary in the same organization, and probably grappling with that same kind of, do I need to change? Do I need to mix things up? What am I passionate about? What I have been passionate about, is that what's going to be my next 15 years of my career? And I was in kind of this moment, and I remember going into Marketing Academy, hearing from so many amazing individuals who had gone through the program and realized that what they were doing wasn't what they wanted to be doing moving forward, and kind of tweaked it. I came out of the Marketing Academy slightly opposite. I'd kind of gone through all of those emotions and those motions, but realized that I have the most incredible growth opportunity within the organization that I'm in, and, have got so much growth potential there and so much support there, that it was different. But I remember one particular exercise with the wonderful Phil Moig, who's one of my Marketing Academy besties now. But there was this one exercise where they broke you off into pairs and essentially asked you to video or voice record each other as you spoke. One person would speak for 45 minutes nonstop. And the question or the topic that they would talk about was, what does success look like for you at work, in life, in your relationships, in family? Think at a certain point in time down the line, 5 years, 1 year, describe what success would look like, feel like, tangibly, feel like. And, I remember Phil turning on the voice recorder and, kind of asking me the question, and I'd talk for about 5 minutes, and then I'd run out of things to say. And I kind of thought that I'd articulated what success looks like. And the one rule of the exercise was you can't stop before the 45 minutes. You have to keep going deeper. And it was, again, quite confronting, because you kind of get to a point and they're like, go deeper. I don't have anything deeper. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And again, it reiterated to me that I think we're all inspired by the choice of where we spend our time, and no one could force our hand on that. And I think I was looking again at uncomfortable growth in slightly a wrong way. I was challenging myself because I felt like, because I built my career at the one organization, was I sitting in my comfort zone? Was I getting stagnant? Was I not working hard enough to diversify my skill set and my toolbox? And it haunted me for a while. Like, it really did. But then that really scary thought about my dad would keep creeping in. Do I unintentionally get to where he is, and I get to the age of 55 and look back and go, oh my goodness, I've thrown everything into my career, and at what expense? Like, that was haunting me and holding me back. And to recognize that, and to recognize that success for me is, I don't know, like everybody, more than just career. It's definitely career, and you've got to be really intentional about where you shape that, but feeling quite inspired by the fact that, where I invest my time is my choice, and holding myself accountable to that. And, I was, as I said, very, very lucky to go through the Marketing Academy, but all of that learning, now that I've kind of, creeping on my 20-year anniversary this year at both the company and the industry, was struck down last year by my partner's injury. So my partner Penny was actually competing in a state rugby championships match up in Tamworth for rugby union, and a tackle dissected his arteries on both sides of his neck, and he had major multiple bilateral strokes on the field of the footy field, and was actually airlifted on life support to Newcastle Hospital. Was on life support for 3 days. We were told that there was no chance he was going to make it, and if he was going to wake up, he'd be a vegetable. And, you know, I spent 4 months in the hospital by his bedside, mostly up at Newcastle. We couldn't get him back home to Sydney, just wasn't stable enough. So my beautiful mum, looked after the kids for 4 months, and I was up there with him for a big part of that. But never have I felt so supported by the entire industry. Never have I felt that people make this industry what it is, and the connections. And that everybody has a story. It was quite incredible to me how many people came up to me afterwards and said, I went through something similar, or I was also caring for a loved one, or I faced this big challenge. And I don't know, it's quite inspiring to know that where I'm at now is a very comfortable whole self approach to uncomfortable growth. And I still chasing down the growth professionally. Very much so. PV, Peter Vogel would very much be testament to that. But yeah, I'm very conscious of the implication that I have on other people, and how important family is to me.
And I think too, like, your story is, I mean, it's so profound on so many levels, because you do have these massive, really hard things. And not to take away the pieces in the middle when you're raising 3 kids as a single mom. That is hard in and of itself, super hard. But I do think too that one of the points you made was be aware, you know, because your dad wasn't aware. And then he got to a point and then he suddenly thought, what have I done? You know, I've missed it out. And your mum reminded you to be aware of, you know, your kids when you're at home. And it always reminds me of the boiling frog metaphor, you know, where you put a frog into warm water and it doesn't jump out, feels kind of nice. And then it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And the frog actually won't jump out because it's incremental. And I think that's what happens with work. So like you said, I was just doing one more email. I just had something that needed to happen for tomorrow, or I was just doing this. And if we are not aware or intentional with how do we want to balance our whole life, then it's easy to keep doing more, because there's always more that's being demanded from work, right? Everyone's already running at 150% capacity. So you can always try and do more. It doesn't mean it's ever going to end. And I just think it's so important, because like you said, it is important, your career, of course, it's your work, it's a source of growth and fulfillment, but it's not all your life. And it's so important to have these other things, because that's really what makes us human too. You know, we're people, we're humans, we want relationships, we want family to be there when jobs change, jobs end. Something like your partner having, you know, massive injury and potentially just dying is life changing. But like you said, because there's people connection, people are really good, you know, they supported you and they had their own stories, and it's not just about one thing. And so I love your story for that. That's my big takeout, is just that awareness of intentional choice.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I hope, the reason I share is because I hope that it inspires other people to shape their careers around what are, I'm sure, very complicated lives outside of work. Everyone has a story. No one's always sharing it in the same way that I am. But I do hope that people feel empowered to do that at all levels. I think, you know, the self-awareness piece, I think, is absolutely really key. And I haven't always been there. And I have moments where I'm completely not self-aware of the way that I'm, turning up as a leader or anything. But I think what I've learned is to have a couple of people around you that hold you to account. Don't just preach what you believe back to you and, you know, self-support you, but someone who can challenge your thinking and go, hang on a second, wait a second, are you just following that pathway because you're running a million miles an hour and you're doing it subconsciously and you're chasing the next milestone on that ever-growing hill and that mountain? Or are you staying true to what you said was really important to you? So I had an opportunity I could have put my hat in the ring for a couple of years ago, career-wise, and I think I got distracted by the opportunity, the pay rise, the promotion, you know, what that would look like. And I threw my hat in the ring. I then kind of swayed and I toyed with, you know, the opportunity a bit, and it played on my mind. And it wasn't until I didn't progress with that opportunity and was quite upset about it. Somebody, you know, asked me, and somebody I trust very much so to challenge my thinking, kind of went, well, why are you upset about it? And where I got to was I was distracted. It wasn't the right opportunity. It was completely not where I wanted to be going long term. And you know this about me, I'm a bit of a planner. I like to have a bit of a plan, and it was not anywhere near my plan. Like, I've learned to be a little bit more open than my tunnel vision plan. But this was nowhere near kind of where I wanted to be going in my future. And I did get distracted and I wasn't self-aware. And it took someone who I know is, you know, very good at holding me to account to be really honest with me and say, you're upset for the wrong reasons, mate. Like, you're chasing something that isn't what you said's the most important thing to you. I don't know, to learn that you will still, even if you feel like you've cracked the self-awareness piece, a second things get busy, or the second as you doubt yourself, that self-awareness disappears. And to have people around you
when you need it.
absolutely. But like, don't get me wrong, I don't have many, like I don't have a long list of people I can call and be like, hold me to account. But there's those couple of people that I know will just come at me with a no BS attitude, just be really straight with me, know me as a person and a leader probably as much as I know myself, and just challenge what I'm thinking and what I'm saying out loud.
And that's so valuable, isn't it? Just to have someone who can basically just look you straight in the eye and say, like, I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't feel congruent with what I know about you and your values and what you've told me before. So what's going on here? And that is such a gift to have. And if you don't have people like that around you, like, I really encourage people to find that person, and it doesn't need to be someone at work to challenge you about work. You know, it can be someone who is completely outside of your work sphere, you know, someone, best friend from years ago. But I do think it helps to have someone who really knows you, like knows your values.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to the uncomfortable growth piece, I think there's always going to be people in your life that, for the absolute best intentions, will tell you that what you're thinking is right. Oh yeah, absolutely, that person, what they were saying was completely unfair, or you know, absolutely what you're thinking is completely valid. You need those people. You need the hype. But I think you got to balance it with the people who will go, no, I think you're actually looking at this from a really different point of view, and I actually see it differently. Or I know this about you, and that doesn't feel like it's grounded in what you believe. So I think, it's, as I said, all for the right reasons. People go along with what you're saying and what you're thinking and feeling, but that probably doesn't challenge you or get you to think about the uncomfortable growth probably as much as you need to.
And help you to grow. I find this will sound funny, but I find that that's exactly the dynamic I have with my teenage children. You know, where you sometimes have to have those really direct conversations, and you know, most of the time, you know, you want to be supportive and, you know, articulate what they've done great and what you admire and all those sort of things. But sometimes, you know, it's like, that wasn't great. Of course, I love you, but that behavior was not okay. And you know, like, you need to know that. You need to hear that from someone who'll tell you, so you can think differently, choose differently, or choose to continue. But you need someone to interrupt that path that you're kind of going on, often without thinking, often on pilot.
Absolutely. It's a bit of tough love. I think we all need a bit of tough love sometimes. And I think, you know, as I said, I've been so lucky to have been introduced to, you know, some incredible learning opportunities, mentors, coaches. I do have those people through those, like, those people have come into my life through the Marketing Academy or through Walk the Talk that I mentioned earlier. And I think, you know, whilst not everyone has the most immediate opportunity to go on programs like that right now and right in this time, I think we all have the opportunity to reach out to people to ask for mentorship or some guidance or a conversation. And I think there are so many people inside our industry and outside of it who are absolutely committed to helping others navigate challenges. And quite often it's just a conversation. This is where I'm at. This is my situation. This is what I'm thinking based on what you know about me. What are your thoughts? Where am I going? Tell me what you think. I don't want, someone who will just agree with what I'm saying, but I want you to challenge my thinking. What am I not saying? What am I blind to?
Yeah. Exactly.
That for me, when I don't feel like I can find the strength in myself to be as self-aware as I need to, or force myself into that uncomfortable bit, which isn't always a nice, pleasant kind of time to be in. It's nice to have someone else kind of get you there, start thinking about that, and start realizing, the opportunity on the other side.
Exactly. And someone who you trust that they've got good intention from challenging you and saying, I don't see that. What's really behind it? I'm actually fascinated by the exercise you were talking about regarding success, where you had to talk for 45 minutes, because I think that is such a powerful question, but also a really smart technique, because it forces you to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So tell me, did your answer change from the first 5 minutes to when you got to the 45, or how did that work for you?
I think you kind of got all the obvious places to start with. Success looks like a promotion or a pay rise or a new house, or, feeling like I'm financially stable or whatever it might be. It's quite surface level, but it's also quite obvious. And I think when we got it's quite interesting, because I still have the 45-minute recording on my phone, and it is quite funny to go back. It is, but it's actually quite nice to listen to the 45 minutes and go, oh, actually in the last 5 years, I've ticked this off, this off, this off. That's still on the list. I still need to work on that. So it holds me to account as well. But you just go really deep. You start, we went to places where it was like, what do I want my daughter to feel about self-esteem? What do I want my son to feel about, friendships and sport, and the fact that he is, my kids are half Fiji and my eldest is quite dark. So how do I want him to feel about the way he looks and the fact that he's different? How would I want him to approach a situation if he was bullied about his skin color? You go to places that just wouldn't be part of the answer in the first 5 minutes. It forces you to think not only about tangible things, but how you want people around you to feel about you, feel about themselves. So it became less about me. The first 5 minutes was me. It was how I want to feel, how I want to see, what things I can get my hands on. And by the 45 minutes, I wasn't talking about me at all. I was talking about my loved ones. I was talking about my team. I was talking about the people I interact with day in, day out that don't know me that well, and the impression and the legacy I kind of want to leave. What do I want people to think about me? What do I want people to feel after they've spent time with me? And a realization that I probably needed to slow down, because my ambition and my drive was so high and has been so high for so long. And I've always been celebrated for, being able to get through so much so quickly quite early on in my career as a practitioner. That was what I adapted as a leadership model, and Peter Vogel, who's been my CEO for 17 years, incredible man for those who know him, he used to always say to me, it's so incredible you can run the marathon, but it's not always the best way. And you have to slow down and take people on the journey. And I heard him, but I didn't. And I didn't listen, and I didn't change anything, and I didn't truly understand it. And I probably didn't dive deep enough. And it wasn't until one of my teammates, many, many, many years later, actually went on the Walk the Talk program herself and came back and said, hey, can I have a chat with you? And I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to kind of hear how it went. And she said, actually, it's quite a semantics, but it's important to me. And it was my aha moment when I went on Walk the Talk. And coming from that program where my aha moment was so significant for me, I kind of went, oh gosh, I've played a role in someone's aha moment. I hope this is good. And she sat down and she said, that report that we get asked to do every month for our clients? And yeah. She goes, you know how you do this part of it and I do this part of it? And yeah. She goes, well, you send yours back so quickly. What you don't realize is then I get hounded by the client, even though it's not due for 2 days, for my part. And it stresses me out and it causes me so much anxiety because I can't keep up with the pace that you're reporting on. And it's making me stressed and I can't juggle what's on my plate. And I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified that I was having that impact on somebody. And my pace was causing someone stress and anxiety. And
Mm.
it was probably the first time in about 5 or 6 years, I learned slowly. I did learn, but I learned slowly though, that Peter Vogel's words resonated and I
Yeah.
understood what they meant. And I kind of went, oh my goodness, the way that I'm showing up day in, day out, the pace that I'm operating at, the
Yes.
expectations that I'm passing on, it's having a tangible impact on the way people feel at work. And that scared me. And it was the first time I kind of went, oh, actually, hang on. To grow as a leader, I need to slow down, which went against everything I'd ever known and been celebrated for my entire career. So it was challenging. And I still
Yeah.
do it when I'm stressed or when I'm busy. I run a million miles an hour. And
Yes.
again, it's those people who hold me to account. Slow down, think about your
Yes.
team. And I have to very intentionally think about my fam, think about the team, think about like, what is this going to make other people feel?
Yeah.
And go back to my voice recording and go, what did I promise success would look like? What did I want to focus on? It was how people feel when I'm around them and spending time with them, not just the stuff that I ticked off my to-do list,
Yes.
over many years. So I don't know, all these beautiful moments of learning opportunity for me have just helped reiterate what I learned very early on in my career. I just didn't listen very well back then.
And I think that that's also such a great insight because intention doesn't equal behavior, right? And like in the industry, we have a lot of behavioral science and we know this. You know, we present this in our strategies to clients all the time. But when it comes to ourselves, we sometimes forget that that applies to us too, because it applies to people. And
Yeah.
um, it is about how you suddenly connect that intention to a behavior. And you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then you modify that behavior. But if it's a natural strength like yours is, just this huge capacity to get through so much work, right? Speed
Yeah.
and quantity, um, every strength also has a shadow side. And I think that that's so important because if we don't realize that, our strengths can actually be harmful. And they
Yeah.
could be great strengths. Like it's amazing how much work capacity you have, but it's not necessarily right in every context, which is what you were saying. And, I think that's a really great piece for people to take out that, your development and growth is often about broadening your strengths and understanding when they serve you and when they don't. And how do you modify for other people? Because that's important in a leadership position. And it's such a big shift, I think, to, people know that, leadership's important. And I see this all the time, right? Because I do lots in capability. People all the time go, oh, I know about people management and I know about leadership and rah, rah, rah. But doing it is so different to being aware of it because someone might have told you and you're like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. But it's connecting that to the moment when you need to operate differently or you need to be aware and being able to catch yourself and then do it, which is hard. Because, like you said, I loved how you said it like every instinct in my body was saying no.
Yeah. And you fight against it.
Fast.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's like, like for me, I love the satisfaction of crossing off something to my to-do list. And, for the last 5 years of my career, getting comfortable with the fact that I'm not crossing as much as I used to off my to-do list, but I'm playing the long-term game. And yeah, I still have to catch myself every day. Why am I prioritizing this over having a meaningful conversation over here that's going to
Yeah,
help somebody else grow
yeah,
and push through their barriers to growth? And I prioritize the short term, not the long term. I always have, and I probably always will. And I will always probably have to force myself to focus on what I think, I should be focusing more on now. But
yeah.
yeah, it's a daily struggle.
It is, and I think everyone has that. But it's when, particularly as you become more senior and you're having to work through people, not just alongside people. And that's when you really need to be able to go, okay, I know my strengths, but I actually need to modify my strengths for other people sometimes, or I need to put aside my strengths and let them lead with their strengths, which is the
Yeah.
diversity. So just that, piece, which is it's not just keeping things through my tunnel,
Yeah.
looking through my tunnel, it's that broader perspective. And how do I do that? Because it is less comfortable to do things that we're not great at. Because
Yeah.
the things we're great at come automatically. It's like you were saying,
Yeah.
like
It's
just get it
default.
done.
Yeah,
Tick, tick, tick.
absolutely.
Feel
Yeah.
good. But it's like, okay, I can't let that go. I'll go and have a conversation because that's what they need.
Yeah, and I think you know what, like again, it didn't come naturally to me, and it's something I've had to work on a lot, and I still am working on it. But I think having the opportunity to reflect, and this sounds so cliche, it sounds ridiculous, but like having the opportunity to reflect on what kind of leader I want to be, what are my values,
Mm-hmm.
and the different ways I can show up and the impact that has on people, and really staying grounded to that. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, leading with empathy, leading with trust, leading
Mm-hmm.
with compassion is
Mm-hmm.
more important to me than getting something done at somebody else's, mental health expense or something like that. Like I will always tell people to prioritize their health over a
Mm-hmm.
task, and I will stay true to that to the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the moment when you're being hustled to deliver
Yes.
on something at all expense, no questions asked, you're in crisis mode, it's hard to stay true to that. Um,
Yes.
but
Yes.
for the most part, trying to stay true to that and being really clear on the leader that I want to be and the leader
Yeah.
that I want people to describe me as for years to
Yeah.
come, that's something that keeps me on the
Ground.
straight and narrow. Yeah, keep me grounded and keep me motivated to the big picture,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I might try the 45-minute voice
Oh, it's
talk.
so good. Honestly, I would give it a go. It's hard. Like you need someone to sit there next to you and go, no,
Yes.
keep talking. You're not there
You only have
yet.
15 minutes. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. And it is 45 minutes is a really long time when you're
Yeah.
talking to yourself out loud about what
Yeah.
success looks like for something that you haven't, what you haven't thought about, but it is so
Yeah.
rewarding to think about. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I just
incredible.
think that's such a great idea. And to also just know what's in your subconscious, right? Because as you said, like the immediate things were obvious, things that most people would go, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you go deeper, and then it becomes less about you and more about what you want to contribute or how you want to impact people and the world that you're part of. And that requires a different approach, like
Yeah,
giving people
absolutely.
what they need means not just thinking about me, thinking first about them.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the next part of that, which then goes on for hours, is to then unpack how to get there. What are
Yeah.
some of the ways? And it's not just one, because obviously, as you know, I'm a planner. That doesn't always go to plan. So you need to be able to think other ways as well. But what the next part of it was, if that's what success looks like at a
Yeah.
really granular level, how are some of the ways you can get there and what's holding you back? And that whole process is so
Yeah.
rewarding. And you just don't stop to think about that
Yes.
kind of thing in that level of detail in your life, in your
Yeah.
career. So to have that moment of reflection was so powerful.
Yeah.
Something that will stick to me as a career and a life highlight in terms of
Yeah.
unpacking what success looks like in my life. So I'm
Yeah.
very grateful for.
And also know when it's your ego stepping in versus what you truly want. So, I remember when I left corporate, which was like 9 years ago or something now. And um and the thing that's like really noticeable after about three months, only 3 months, is that as soon as you're out of a corporate role, like people are like, oh, you're not in that role. I'm not going to invite you to stuff. Right.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
so it's a massive ego impact. It really is because you're like, oh, I thought you were inviting me for me. Like obviously I was in the role, but I know what I'm doing. I'm good at this stuff. But
Yeah.
then as soon as you're out of that title, you don't get invited. And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And so it's a really big impact. And you
Yeah.
kind of have to step back and go, okay, well, I get it, but what's actually important to me? Why would I choose to stay doing my own thing versus going back into a job? And and even though I'm really clear on my choice and why, you can still feel that's sometimes the rub, right?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, when you like don't get invited to something, or oh no, we're looking for someone, people ring me all the time going, do you know someone in these roles?
Hand up, hand
Well,
down.
I actually know what you're looking for, but that's okay. That's okay. I get why you want someone, in
Yeah.
with a title in a role, which is why you have to be really clear on what your definition of success is. So clearly when you step outside of corporate, it's no longer the corporate title.
Yeah.
Like you're still working in corporate, but you
You
don't
should have the same influence in that organization
have
as you
that
did before.
automatic
Yeah.
kind of respect, right? You don't
Yeah.
have that. But
Yeah.
then I always go, well, you know what? I know if people reach out to me, it's because they actually value what I know and what I can give them rather
Absolutely.
than, it's part of working with that company or we're trying to win business or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
There
yeah. But
must be something powerful knowing that the people that are reaching out to you now are reaching out to you personally, not your title in a corporate organization as well. I mean, that must be quite a benefit, I suppose, of
yeah, it
doing that
is, but
now.
it's such a different dynamic. And so like your whole point, you remember when you were talking about the job that you really wanted but you didn't get, and then you figured out that actually it wasn't the right job.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a little bit like that, right? So you've chosen to do your thing, but then you're like, oh, sometimes it would just be easier, I think, just to go back.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing, right? Because I think every choice, like I talk about, being inspired by choice, and we've always got our own choices, and we can choose where we invest our time, the decisions we make. But every choice has pros and cons. So you sit there with both of it, no matter which way you decide to go, you're still always going to
Hmm.
get caught up on the pros of the other side that you didn't pick. And I think that's for me because I know that I get distracted so easily with, things that could excite me about opportunities, and I
Uh-huh.
to have those people, as I said before, to have to hold
Yeah.
me to account is super
Yeah.
important when I do get distracted, because I get distracted by
Yeah.
opportunities or something that somebody says. Um,
Yeah.
but understanding that every decision I make is going to have pros and cons on both sides makes me feel more comfortable with where I land with my decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also too, like it's interesting you've been now at um the current group for 20 years, right? So it's 20 years, which
Yeah,
is really
incredible.
unusual in the media industry,
Yeah,
especially for someone of your age, because you're still very young, right?
thank
So
you.
20
I'll take
years
that.
when you're very young. Um, but I do think too that you can always find growth. This is my opinion. So, you can always find growth. You can absolutely get it from an existing organization if there's a lot of diversity of opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
Um, but it's more of a mindset. More than anything, it's a mindset and willingness to have that like insight around, oh, oh, you know, I need to think differently. I need to learn how to stretch into these skills. I need to lead in a way that's consistent with what I've said, which is walk the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was quite interesting actually. Like, I mean, I always grappled with it myself, but it wasn't until someone I worked with for about 10 years came up to me and she said, I've just told someone I'm celebrating 10 years at the organization. And I said, yeah. And she goes, there was such a negative connotation in the response. The response was, why would you stay at the one place for 10 years? And
Yeah.
I talked to her about my experience grappling with the same kind of concept and
Mm,
this thought that I'd had to move. And what I say to my team now is, look, there's always going to be somewhere else that's going to offer you a promotion or 5K extra pay
mm,
rise. And for many, that's the path they choose to move, but that's not the only path. And I've been very lucky, and I've
mm,
worked really hard to chase a really steep learning curve and growth opportunities within the one organization. And I get that not everyone has that. I have been lucky enough to have that. But I think the point for me is just helping people understand that growth comes in different shapes and forms, and that's okay. And you don't have to follow what is the expected pathway or what somebody tells you
yes.
is the next promotional step. Like, we're in such a diverse industry now that there's so many opportunities to
Yeah.
go, up, left, right, whatever it might be. You can kind of choose your own
Yeah.
path, and you should be able to choose your own path. So for
Yes.
me, that's my hope, is that I can inspire other people to, as I said, shape their careers around not only their, passions at work, but
Yeah.
also what could be complicated lives outside of work as well. And if I can do that in my career, then that makes me a happy woman. Because as I said, I struggled with it, and I still have days where I struggle with it. So yeah, that's my hope.
Well, I feel very confident that you're delivering on your.
Thank you, Rowena.
I've got a couple of questions to wrap us up.
Love
the
it.
first one is, what are 3 things that you've learnt about yourself in recent years?
That I can't. For number one is that I'm more resilient than I ever thought was possible. Helping Penny through his injury last year and navigating that and the emotions of my kids at the same time. Like, I never thought that I'd find that strength. Second is probably linked to that, in that, I've always been fiercely independent, particularly before my divorce. I was fiercely independent, and I took great satisfaction knowing that I could get it all done myself. Realizing that it's okay to ask for help and show vulnerability when you're not coping is so powerful and takes so much more courage than putting on a brave face.
Very true.
Oh, absolutely. And the third is that I still have moments of not self-doubt, but lack of self-awareness. And this is a people industry, and we are so blessed to have people that we can connect with on a really deep level who can become those people who can hold you to account. So find your people, get them to be super brutally honest with you, because it will hold you to what matters most in life if you can be honest with them and they can be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
What is important to you at the moment in your life? And it can be any part of your life.
I would have to say, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I've got my wedding in 2 weeks and a new baby in January. So for me, creating a really healthy, happy, stable home life where my family feel lots of love, health, and happiness. That's my absolute number one priority. And I would like to think that remains unchanged for a very long time. But yeah, that's my absolute number one focus.
Happy, joyous time ahead, right? Like a wedding, and there's also another little bit of news, right?
Yeah, a little Bubba due in January. So family's growing. It will be a mum of 4 soon. God help me. But they bring me so much joy, and taking comfort in the fact that those 3 older ones will be built-in babysitters this time around. That's kind of the goal. But no, couldn't be more thrilled. And after Penny's injury last year, I kind of look back to where we were a year ago and think about where we are now, and I just it feels so incredibly grateful, and reiterated to me that life is so precious and flies by so quickly.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And my last question is, what is a current fear, a current inspiration, and a current challenge for you at the moment?
Current fear is that I continue not to have the self-discipline needed to focus on being the leader that I want to be, and get too caught up in the day-to-day tasks. Inspiration, again, this is going to sound really cliche, but I've worked with a man for 17 years. Peter Vogel is one of the best leaders I know, and I still, after 17 years, have so much to learn from him. The way he shows up for people around him, no matter whether you've worked with him for 17 years or a month. He is one of the most authentic, genuine, empathetic leaders I know, and he inspires me to really focus on slowing down and doing that to be the leader that I want to be.
Oh, that's amazing. And last one is challenge. What is a current challenge?
Challenge. I think navigating pace of change. I mean, our industry has always been fast-paced. Everyone who works in it will talk to that, but I think never has that pace been so quick. And as I said, like throughout, my biggest challenge is slowing down. So at a time when the market or the industry is speeding up in terms of AI, tech, everything's happening so quickly. To be, as I said, self-disciplined enough to slow down within that environment and lead calmly with intention, whilst not losing sight of the absolute must-dos and must-wins as a business, and as a mom and a soon-to-be wifey again. That just all of that, that's probably my biggest challenge, is navigating through fast-paced change in the way that I want to navigate change.
That sounds incredible. So insightful.
Thank you.
It's been so lovely to have you on this episode. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you for being you. It was incredible.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. And again, nice to reflect and some of the moments that make me who I am. So thank you.
If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?